The Detroit Regional Chamber's MPC20 Conversations, Respond and Rebuild digital series is provided in partnership with Detroit Public Television and presented by Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan, with additional support from Accenture, Bank of America, Barton Malow, Comerica Bank, Consumers Energy, Delta Dental, Dow, DTE Energy, Enbridge Energy, Ford Motor Company, Huntington Bank, ITC, KPMG, the Kresge Foundation, Kroger, Michigan Economic Development Corporation, PNC Bank, Ralph C. Wilson Jr. Foundation, Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans, the Skillman Foundation, and TCF Bank. And by these supporters. Support for Detroit Public TV's coverage is provided by DTE Energy Foundation and Masco.
You know your business better than anyone. And the Michigan Economic Development Corporation has more ways to help your business in Michigan than everyone. Getting to know us can help you build stronger connections, expand into bigger markets, and gain access to new investors. Big, small, global, or local, the MEDC can help your Michigan business like nobody's business.
Hello, and welcome to MPC20 Conversations, Respond and Rebuild. This digital series, hosted by the Detroit Regional Chamber, is bringing smart dialogue focused on the unprecedented challenges that Michiganders are facing today. On behalf of the Chamber, I would like to thank Detroit Public Television and the many longtime corporate and philanthropic partners for bringing the spirit of our annual Mackinac Policy Conference to us virtually throughout the fall. Without their support of the Chamber, these discussions would not be possible. While an in-person Mackinac Policy Conference was not possible this year, ongoing dialogue among business, government, and civic leaders focused on moving Michigan forward remains critical as we work together to rebuild our economy. I hope you enjoyed today's discussion, and thank you for tuning in.
Hi, and welcome to the Detroit Regional Chamber's MPC20 Conversation, Enabling Statewide Economic Prosperity Through Times of Crisis. I'm Carol Cain, Senior Producer and host of CBS 62's Michigan Matters, which you can see 11:30 Sundays, and also columnist at the Detroit Free Press. I'm so pleased to be with you during this virtual session, which is being brought to you by the Detroit Regional Chamber and also Detroit Public Television. The focus of this discussion is to focus on economic development, which is so critical to all of us. We're going to talk about how we've been adjusting during this pandemic and offer a look at the road ahead. And we're pleased to have with us two leaders at the forefront who are here to provide insights into these topics and more. Mark Burton is President and CEO of MEDC. He took on this role just as the pandemic was kicking in, so timing is everything. Mark was most recently Governor Whitmer's chief strategist and has held various positions across state government. He also started a small business and has worked in the philanthropic community. Kevin Johnson is president and CEO of Detroit Economic Growth Corporation, has had that title since 2018. Kevin has served in various roles in public and private sectors throughout the United States, including Arizona, Florida, North Carolina, and Georgia. So with those introductions done and out of the way, let's dive in because I know people tuning in here are so interested in this. So Mark, let me start with you. Why don't you give us the quick thumbnail on MEDC? What is its role and mission?
Just to be brief, MEDC is the lead agency responsible for marketing the state of Michigan, for growing businesses and building resilient communities across our state. We are committed to growing jobs and creating vibrant places to live by pursuing projects that provide economic opportunity for all Michiganders.
And Kevin, why don't you tell us about DEGC? What is its role and mission?
Well, thank you for inviting us. DEGC's role is to retain, attract, and grow the city of Detroit's economy, utilizing a variety of tools to support those industries and businesses that we are beneficiaries of establishing operations in the city of Detroit. We also have a fully pledged area of support for small businesses, and we do that by utilizing a variety of tools to grow the small business ecosystem and small businesses in general here in the city of Detroit, and putting an inclusionary lens on everything that we do and touch.
And so we know that business across the state has been severely impacted, not only from a health standpoint, financial standpoint, by these challenges brought on by the COVID-19 pandemic. So Mark, I want both of you to answer this, but Mark, let me start with you. What's been the biggest challenge from where you stand in dealing with all of this?
To be honest, Carol, I think the biggest challenge is just the breadth and the depth of both of these happening at the same time. I believe these circumstances obviously create great uncertainty and anxiety, not just from kind of the business side of the world, but deeply personal as well, whether it's health or employment, childcare, or schooling, just obviously to name a few. And on how those challenges, I think, on the economic side have continued to evolve over the course of the pandemic. I think we first saw that it was largely all about immediate liquidity when we had sort of the stay-at-home order that was issued in late March. And then it shifted to being a struggle to gain access to the right PPE that would allow businesses to begin to reopen. And then obviously now it continues to evolve as winter approaches, and we try to look forward and are concerned with survivability when it comes to reduced capacity or continued reduced customer base.
And Kevin, from your standpoint over at DEGC, how do you see, been the biggest challenge, do you think, through all this?
I have to echo what Mark shared. We were really in a stabilization and survival mode for the businesses that needed it the most. And that's micro enterprises, and not that this is in any ranking order, but micro enterprises and small businesses in the city of Detroit make up the fabric of this city. Yes, we're beneficiaries of having large enterprises in this community, but when the small businesses are challenged, it was literally trying to make sure that they were as stable as we could make them by utilizing the tools that came from the state, the federal government, and the city to provide those liquidity events that Mark mentioned to make sure that someone can make payroll or rent. That was the most immediate challenge, and that challenge still exists to this day.
So let me ask the flip side of that question. What do you see as the biggest opportunity in all of this, in this new world order of how we're dealing with this pandemic? And Kevin, why don't you start us off on that one?
Well, I think some of the things that have emerged out of this crisis has been the way in which businesses invite their customers to shop and share and trade with them, including, we have had several small businesses that didn't have an e-commerce platform that now do. The ability to provide spaces where people were safe and reconfiguring their spaces came out of this crisis that we're in right now. And I see that continuing in a way that gives them a much broader reach than what they had before. That's one immediate benefit I see.
And Mark, how about you?
Yeah, I certainly want to agree with Kevin on that one. I think the other standout for me personally has been that Michigan's always been about innovation, and that has been a great strength in the past, and I think it's a great strength for us now. We continue to see people coming together when it comes to some of these challenges and some of these problems that are before us. One just specific example of that is early on in this crisis in late March, early April. we offered retooling grants to any manufacturers that wanted to seemingly overnight retool to be able to create and produce much needed PPE, and to see the response to that, whether it's from some great companies in Detroit, up to Harbor Beach, to Traverse City, and other places across the state. It was really wonderful to see people come together to be able to attack a problem that we all had and we all shared as Michiganders at that point and still do. But just to be able to see people coming together and understanding that we're all in this together, and capitalizing on some of those strengths we have, like innovation, I think that's a good foundation and a wonderful opportunity to keep building on.
Speaking of coming together, working together is something, if people weren't doing it before the pandemic, they probably are doing a lot more of it now. So I guess the question to both of you is, how are you working together to help make economic development a stronger force here in our region and the state? And Mark, why don't you go first here?
Sure. I think it's fair to say that none of the work that we do is really possible without strong partnerships across state government, but also at the local level, and particularly DEGC, and Kevin's a great example of that. Our response from a pandemic standpoint, beginning in mid-March and continuing throughout, obviously, the spring and summer, we developed and launched 19 different programs specific to relief efforts. Those have touched over 16,000 small businesses directly, which has in turn helped retain more than 100,000 jobs statewide. But none of those things were possible without partnerships like we have with DEGC and others, both on a local and a regional level across the state.
I mean, and I can't tell you how strong a partner the state and MEDC has been under Mark's leadership. They were responsive. We changed our processes and procedures to get grant dollars out of the door in a record time. I know here in the city of Detroit, between what the city has invested in the grant dollars that the state has provided to our community, we put in $11.5 million, touched over 1,700 businesses received grants here in the city of Detroit. And that said a lot about how remarkable we were in response to this crisis. And there's many more examples of that. But something on the local level that we did was we stood up this coalition called Detroit Means Business. And this is a coalition of 60 different entities around the city of Detroit to make sure that the small business community had a one-stop, easily accessible information stream of data from availability of playbooks to restart your operations, to the distribution of PPE, to a newly designed website so that you can access all of this information. And that coalition, the Detroit Means Business Coalition, still exists and will continue soon after, and hopefully after this crisis gets behind us. But it's become such a reliable tool for small businesses to have access to. And that came out of this COVID crisis that we're in right now. I'm very proud of that.
And in fact, businesses of all size, small and medium and big corporations, everybody has felt it in some way or another here. When it comes to the type of help that these companies are asking for, I'm going to assume that has changed from, say, a year ago. If we'd had this conversation a year ago, we would have had a very different conversation. So Kevin, can you talk a little bit about what you're specifically hearing from businesses when they reach out to you? And then if Kevin, if you can, and Mark after Kevin answer.
Yeah, I mean, what they're asking us for is clarity. They're asking for, if we have resources available, make that process as user-friendly and less bureaucratic as we possibly could make it. They ask for technical assistance on how to mine through a process that we may have put in place. They're asking for us to get the word out that they're open for business, to make sure that we're doing it in a way that has as much reach as we could possibly support them in accomplishing getting the marketing message out to the community. And I'd say finally, the act of caring and showing up and letting them know that you care and letting them know that you hear them has been such a demand for us to make sure they know we're here for them. That gives them confidence that they can overcome the challenges that we're facing.
I agree with everything Kevin just said in terms of of what we hear sort of our business customers want and need and deserve in a period of time like we're in right now. Just to underscore a couple of things Kevin mentioned, though. One is the speed at which we all operated is been remarkable, I think, because we all understood that days and weeks really mattered. So we, we really made an effort at that, both at the state and local level. And I think, and I think that's been a wonderful thing to figure out. And secondly, I think it's just the emphasis of what we did on a given month or a given year in the past. We at MEDC, we've done a lot of work with small businesses over the years. But I think that this crisis just sort of elevated that into a new realm, especially when it comes to that understanding piece of just what we do and how we do it. But again, I mean, we are all in this together. So the partnerships that we had, that we were able to deal with this crisis efficiently and effectively is really kind of what made all of that happen. And we keep hearing from businesses of any size that sort of partnership is really important when it comes to, whether they will continue to keep their doors open and people on payroll.
So Mark, you came into this job literally as this pandemic was starting. So when you were talking about the job and interviewing, et cetera, it was a different set of circumstances. What's been the biggest surprise to you through all of this? What have you learned or realized about this that you didn't know when you came into the job?
Carol, it's been a fascinating experience because it was on my third business day in the office, actually, is when the governor first declared a state of emergency. So even the getting around the office to meet people hadn't been complete yet. But in terms of kind of the learning opportunities for me, particularly in this sort of crisis environment, I believe it's the strength of the team that we have at MEDC and the ability to be creative, to be thoughtful, but then also nimble and urgent. I think those things together are what I really got an opportunity to discover and lead sort of all at the same time, really beginning in mid-March. So I think that combination of things, again, with the work of our partners across the state, has really been something that in a quote unquote normal onboarding would have taken me a lot longer time to discover. And that's one of the benefits, if I can call it that, of a crisis like this, is it allowed me to see and understand an organization and to lead one that has those attributes that are almost designed perfectly for the moment.
And Kevin, you are a seasoned veteran of economic development. You've had high profile positions in cities around the country. Still, I'm going to imagine there's got to be something about this crisis for the last 8 months or whatever we're into now that has surprised you or you didn't know about before. So what has stood out to you?
I think the ability to move processes faster than what you were typically conditioned to do. So what used to take a year to do during this crisis took months. And whatever took months now takes weeks. And whatever the circumstances was that was taking weeks are now taking days. And so what that proved to me was that if we take a real hard inward look, if we could do that on what our old normal was, this needs to kind of be our new way in which we operate. Because the people who appreciated that movement and speed the most are the people that we serve, the people that provide investment in jobs. And if you can get those things in our processes moving in a more efficient and effective manner during a crisis, then things don't fall through the cracks and things, we're not bailing water on the boat, then I think that is the new way in which we could do business all the time. And that's what I hope to aspire for our state, our cities, and our municipalities to do, is to move with the speed of urgency all the time.
Mm-hmm. So Mark, tell me a little bit about MEDC. I know it provides funds for businesses, and how have you adjusted how you're allocating funds during this time?
I think usually we serve businesses of all sizes, and we continue to do so. I think when it comes to the programs, particularly over the last, especially the first few months of this pandemic, we really kind of took every available resource we had and we put it into relief efforts. And that was justified, and and it was meaningful. As we look forward into the new fiscal year that began this month, in our case, we're in a fiscal year where we hope to be able to straddle, obviously, continued sort of relief and stability efforts, and then move into a relief phase towards, obviously, the back end of this fiscal year. So when it comes to the programs and the resources that we can offer businesses, we recognize that is going to evolve over this fiscal year. So we are still in a relief and stability mode, but at the same time we have some wonderful retention and growth projects that happen, that have continued to happen even through the pandemic. And as we kind of look on the horizon going forward, we hope that there will be more opportunities, and we will work very hard towards those opportunities for those kind of growth and retention projects, but also attraction efforts. I think we do have momentum that we built up before the pandemic, and as much as this was a negative impact to businesses of all sizes, being able to come out of it and recover out of it quicker is still there. So we are looking to, like I said, straddle this fiscal year between relief and stability, but then also, keeping focused on the growth and the opportunities for future jobs and development on the community side. So we're optimistic about this year, but yeah, it's a different set of circumstances than we've ever faced, particularly given the length of this crisis, not just on the public health side, but the economic side.
And Kevin, DEGC, how have you adjusted in terms of how you're allocating your fund and resources at this time?
Yeah, obviously, Detroit's economy is made up of small businesses. Its neighborhoods are anchored by small businesses. And so all we can do in the most immediate time frame is to stay in stabilization and provide relief mode, as Mark has mentioned. At the same time, however, and I'm so curious, this is kind of amazing to me. We had a company in our office, literally in our office this morning, from Italy. All right. So we're going, wait a minute, what are you guys doing here? We're glad you're here, but what are you doing here? And they were like, well, we're looking to the future. And so that just gave me this kind of new sense of, well, look, we got to be in go mode. As soon as we can go, we got to stay in go mode. And that for me means, attracting new opportunities to the city of Detroit and to the state of Michigan. That means getting out to the marketplace and sharing with them all of the qualities and attributes that our city has. That would be something that you would be willing to bring your operation and invest in our community. So we're going to kind of run some parallel tracks at the availability of resources, where we're doing stabilization and relief, but we're also going to attraction and retention and expansion mode and not taking our eye off of that, because, the cloud's going to, sky's going to clear, right? And we want to be at the full benefit and beneficiary of when the sky's clear. We have gone out and told the world just how wonderful a place doing business in Detroit is, in the state of Michigan, is to invest your resources.
Kevin, do you want to dovetail on that as far as MEDC reaching out to new companies, entities? Because it's not like Michigan's alone in this. Every state, and most countries have got this issue of this pandemic, COVID-19. So trying to do business, trying to look towards the future, it's a juggling act. And how are you dealing with that?
You're absolutely right. Everybody, if you're not in go mode, I'm not going to tell you to be in go mode, because there's still going to be a competition for investment and jobs, as there was before COVID hit, right? So now we have to decide, how attractive of a city do we need to be in this kind of post-COVID outlook that we have. So looking at some internal processes and procedures, looking at making sure that we have available land in industrial areas and office space, looking at all those, how are we going to conduct business post-COVID, so that when it happens, we're not creating. We already know that we have things in place that allows for commerce and investment to happen fairly quickly. So, doing an analysis of our existing business environment is going to be the way in which communities and cities are going to come out on the back end of this in a more healthy state.
Mark, how about you, as far as dealing with the pandemic and juggling and knowing there's going to be light on the other side of this tunnel that we're in?
Yeah, I think, the value proposition that we have for Michigan, remains uniquely strong. We have an unparalleled combination of low cost of doing business and a extremely high quality of life, whether it's the businesses or the people that work there. And from, again, on this opportunity that we have looking forward, first and foremost, I think that, companies are evaluating their current supply chains, and they're looking to modify risk mitigation strategy to avoid the disruptions that we saw earlier this year. And we are well positioned to take advantage of this for any number of reasons. But it's those opportunities that in this moment we need to attack and be in that go mode, as Kevin talks about, because they while they are competitive, they are real, and we can take advantage and maximize the advantages we have in this space. But again, we have to do it. We have to be prepared, and we have to be urgent about it, because these companies making decisions are going to look to make them quickly. And we obviously believe Michigan's should be on everybody's radar, and we can be competitive on every front.
In my Detroit Free Press columns and on my show Michigan Matters, I've had on Dave Lorenz from Travel Michigan, Larry Alexander, and others involved with tourism and travel and the entertainment industry, which I don't need to tell anybody watching this how hard hit that sector has been. It's one of the biggest sectors in the state. And Mark, any conversation or any thoughts you want to offer about what's ahead for the road on the tourism, travel / entertainment front?
Sure. Pure Michigan had its funding cut in this past year, so it's been a campaign that's been dark for nearly a year. We had funding for that restored in the budget that was passed and signed by the governor in late September. So we're very, very pleased about that. We obviously know that travel is different now, and the focus of that campaign will be different. But when it comes to the communities and the hospitality industry, that is an important restoration of funds, because there's an awful lot of people here across our state who are a part of that economic sector, who rely on that greatly. So when it comes to sort of taking the budget that we got roughly October 1st, right now we're building that campaign, for sort of a relaunch of sorts. We are attempting to get that up and running for one late fall push before getting into winter, obviously, but that's still in development, so I can't commit to late fall quite yet. But as we continue to see the virus and the outbreaks that happen across the state, I think Pure Michigan and travel really illustrates that we as a society and as a state need to continue our best to control the public health side of this, because until we do that, we will never realize the true potential on the economic side when it comes to recovery. But important development that we had funding restored for it. We look forward to a great campaign in new circumstances, and we see benefits of that, not just in the Upper Peninsula and the Northern Lower, but even in the city of Detroit quite a bit. So it's a big help, and it's an important part of what we do.
And Kevin, we're running short on time here, but we know inclusion is an extremely part of our landscape, not only in the city and the region and the state. So just real quickly, DEGC, can you give us an example of what you're doing to help this conversation about inclusion here?
Well, what we're demonstrating is that inclusion equals economic growth. And why I say that is, just the distribution of the grants that we received from the state and federal government. 70% of those grants went to people of color, business owners of color. 80% of those grants were for women-owned businesses. We've had this inclusionary mentality right from the start, and the benefit of that is economic stabilization. But if you're closing out a segment of your population, and it's making it harder for them to do business, it has a direct negative impact on the economy of this city and the economy of this state. So we want to show that by being inclusive, that it has a broader reach than just the societal impact of it. It has an economic impact as well. And we will always be in that posture here at DEGC in the city of Detroit.
Just real quickly, your thoughts looking ahead on the economy here in Michigan, what you're foreseeing over these next 6 months to a year. Just real quickly, Mark, let me start with you.
Winter season, I think on certain sectors is going to be difficult. And that's where we're going to focus a lot of our relief efforts. But overall, in terms of being able to eventually recover from this, we believe that we're decently well positioned to be able to do that quickly. And again, just to back up what Kevin said, we're going to be stronger because of some of these efforts and sort of this enhanced approach that we're taking on some of these issues, whether it's minority-owned or women-owned businesses. So cautiously optimistic that if we can keep the public health side of this under control, then we can recover quickly coming out the other side, and continue sort of on that momentum that we had pre-pandemic.
And Kevin, your message?
I think we have to be public health smart and in this whole thing, and not let our emotions overwhelm the public health aspect of what we do. That solves some of the economic challenges that we're going to face in the short term and sets us up well for long term moving forward.
And I know the conversation about wearing masks could be a whole talk show in and of itself, because we know there are a lot of people who are doing so, and there's some who just don't get it and don't want to wear it. But my last question to each of you, and Mark, let me start with you. I like to have a takeaway, one piece of advice to leave people who are taking time to check in and be part of this. What piece of advice would you give someone, a small business? Let's gear this towards small business. Someone who's out there by themselves, they don't have a lot of big, corporate board around them to help guide them. What piece of advice would you give a small business who's scared about looking at what's coming up ahead here? Piece of advice to help them to try to get through this next 6 months to 12 months.
Yeah, I think the best piece of advice is just the acknowledgement that we're all in this together. And if there's any doubt about whether there are resources out there for you to help your particular business, whether it's in this community or that community, reach out, because groups like Kevin's in Detroit, us on the statewide basis, we are focused on your ability to survive and to weather this storm, so to speak. And we are here. So please reach out and let us know. We are all in on helping you. And please don't hesitate.
I would say connecting to our network is going to be vitally important. Detroit Means Business, Detroit Economic Growth Corporation, other entities that are standing in the gap for you to do what we can to keep you stabilized until we get on the other side of this. Please do that. It'd be very important.
And Mark, last question for you. Any regrets about taking this job? Because you've been on the highway on this since you've taken this job.
It's a wonderful organization doing wonderful work. And I get to work with wonderful partners like Kevin. So I absolutely love it here. And it's been a pleasure to serve in, obviously, in the heat of these crises.
Gentlemen, I want to thank you so much for taking time to be involved in this conversation. And I want to thank our guests who have been tuning in for this Detroit Regional Chamber MPC20 conversation. Again, thanks for joining us, and everybody have a great day.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
The Detroit Regional Chamber's MPC20 Conversations Respond and Rebuild digital series is provided in partnership with Detroit Public Television and presented by Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan, with additional support from Accenture, Bank of America, Barton Malow, Comerica Bank, Consumers Energy, Delta Dental, Dow, DTE Energy, Enbridge Energy, Ford Motor Company, Huntington Bank, ITC, KPMG, the Kresge Foundation, Kroger, Michigan Economic Development Corporation, PNC Bank, Ralph C. Wilson Jr. Foundation, Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans, the Skillman Foundation, and TCF Bank. And by these supporters. Support for Detroit Public TV's coverage is provided by DTE Energy Foundation and Masco.